Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar video. This is going to be my next Korra fan commentary track, and like the last video, this one's going to be for something a little bit different. This one is going to be for the Korra web shorts, Republic City Hustle, Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. But we're going to be looking at the whole thing together. Like the last video, the way I'm going to work this one is that I'm going to have a link in the description to a copy of this Republic City Hustle that is up on YouTube. So obviously have that video open in another tab to watch along, but obviously emphasize the audio of this commentary over the audio in that video itself, so you actually get the benefit of the commentary. But as ever, I am going to stop speaking as part of the introduction in just a bit. There'll be about a 10-second pause, and when I come back, that's when I'm going to hit play on the video. That's when you should hit play on the video, and we should be synced up. So yeah, I am now going to stop speaking as part of the introduction. When I come back after the pause, hit play, I'll hit play, and we should be synced up. Okay, so here we are with Republic City Hustle. We start off part 1 here. This is the backstory basically for Mako and Bolin. Specifically, this covers their transition from being part of the Triple Threat Triads in the aftermath of their parents' death to actually starting their kind of pro-bending training. And they do that by showing how they meet Toza and come to form like a bit of a relationship with him. So you see them having to do these sort of acts out here on the streets, feigning being, you know, robbers, and Bolin being the hero, to make it seem like, oh, Bolin, you know, got the woman's purse back for her, and he like earns basically a reward for doing that. So they're still scamming her, but they're not stealing the stuff and keeping it. We do see that they're willing to do that, with obviously Bolin's frustration here at only getting 2 yuans, and then he steals some, I think, the bread or whatever. It just highlights, you know, this is the situation that they're in. While they are working for the Triple Threat Triads at this point in time, they are trying to survive, and this is what they have to do. And this is what Mako told Korra very early on in Korra about their time as the Triple Threats. It was a very tough time for them with their parents gone, and I think Mako talks about that sort of, you know, unfairness in everything going on here. But here we see Toza, captain of the Black Quarry Porcupines here. Bolin's hero, so obviously Bolin watches pro bending when he can. And here he is meeting Toza for the first time. You can see Toza's fairly old here, so towards the end of his pro bending career, accepting a bribe here to lose a match because the Triads run the sort of pro bending betting kind of scene. So this is an interesting scene of like Bolin seeing his hero, you know, also go down a sort of similar path to him, of like that's a theme in this, of Mako being very like, we're doing this, what we have to do to survive. Yeah. You either hustle or get hustled, because he's just trying to protect his brother in all of this. But Bolin, you can see, isn't really cut out for this, and that's why Mako, I suppose, does most of the stuff here. And you can see that Bolin is more kind of like thinking about, he doesn't want Toza to go down this path because he respects him so much. And he's Shady Shin here, who of course, you know, was the main way, in a way, we sort of found out about their history with the Triads, of like getting money for the team in the setup for the tournament in Korra. So, you know, there's some nice connections here with the characters that they use. And obviously Toza is still a pretty big star. The whole premise of this is on the basis that everyone is going to bet on the Porcupines to win because Toza is in action. They get across the idea, I think, shortly, that Toza is struggling with like injuries, and because he's getting towards the end of his career, those are really coming into play. So I get the impression he's probably missed certain matches or seasons, but that when people know he is in the starting team, they bet for the Porcupines every time because of Toza, and that's what the whole Triple Threat scheme here is about in terms of bribing Toza. But here's the debut of Pabu. This is his origin story here. This pet shop owner is planning to just feed him to the python Anaconda, So it's interesting that a pet shop owner considers a fire ferret just to be sort of almost like a rodent in a way, just food for another pet. Whereas Bolin, we see, really cares about everyone, and here he is going over to Toza. And yeah, this is nice, just seeing the kind of, the heart of Bolin here. Yeah, there we go. Body and bank account broke. So I guess he spent money just trying to getting healing done and stuff like that to keep his career going, but it's not going well. That's why he's had to resort to taking the bribe, because the team is coming to the end of its run with him as the captain. So it's an interesting little plot here with just the sportsmen at the end of their career. Because we know the Porcupines are like the second most successful team of pro bending history. It ends up being the Wolfbats, even though we know they're cheaters. So realistically, it's the Porcupines who are the most successful team, because we know that they won 3 in a row at some point, whereas the Wolfbats beat that by cheating to get the 4 in a row against the Fire Ferrets. But it's interesting that we know that stuff. I think it's mentioned at some point. It's mentioned that 10 years ago was Toza's big game where he really won the match for the team as the captain. He kind of really made a star for himself at that point. But yeah, here we go. Bolin sneaking in to get Pabu back from the Python Anaconda. Mako stepping in to help Bolin, as he always does, which will, I suppose, ultimately set up the idea of when will Bolin be able to help Mako? When will Bolin be the one who becomes the star? And that's Bolin's arc in a way in Korra. It's about him finding his way, him doing these things that make him come across as a hero, and in the end, in book 4, him getting a chance to save his brother when his brother makes a big sacrifice. That moment in book 4 is really strong. But anyway, here is the end of part 2 going into part 3. Nice to see Toza in the pro bending gear there. And yeah, here we go. Part 3. Pro Bending Arena always looks amazing. One of the coolest buildings in Republic City. Shiro Shinobi is fantastic. It's interesting here, we don't get the name of the team the Porcupines are going up against, but it looks to be another all-female team based on the little shot we see in a second when they're all knocked out. But yeah, here they are throwing the match here. Toza's the last one in. And yeah, he stays up here. He's still indecisive at this point, but he sees Bolin, looking sad at seeing his hero do this, and decides to fight back. And big comeback. And yeah, you can see there. I think the whole team is female. Yeah, you can see that. So that's an interesting one there. He gets the win. The Triads lose their money. There's Lightning Bolt Zolt there. Always cool to see him. And then, yeah, Bolin speaks a little bit too much there and reveals what he did. But yeah, this is a cool little sequence of the brothers, fighting to defend themselves here. Some nice earthbending for Bolin. You're getting to see them when they're not super powerful. But what an interesting thing at this point is that, as far as we're aware, Mako should be a lightning bender at this point. Because if they leave the triple threats at this point, that means Mako has already learned from Lightning Bolt Zolt how to do lightning generation and redirection. I suppose it's not really needed to be used here, because Lightning Bolt Zolt comes in here to stop this fight, because he thinks it's silly that the Triads are fighting kids. But immediately Toza's bending is much more powerful than the kids, which makes sense. But, he steps in to defend them, like they sort of, spoke up for him in a way. I like the little electricity on his punch, highlighting how skilled of a lightning bender he is. It's an interesting character, it highlights lightning is still a rare ability, that someone has that as their name. There's a handful of people in the power plant who have lightning, plus, Mako himself. Iroh, of course, has lightning, and also Lightning Bolt Zolt. So there's only about 8 characters that we really know who have lightning, and then 4 or 5 of them are nameless characters. I don't think it's so prevalent that we can really say it's just, ubiquitous at this point. It's still very rare. We've gone from having, 3 lightning benders, Iroh, Azula, Ozai, to now having, 8? That's not that much. But yeah, Toza speaks up for the boys here. he saw how skilled they were at such a young age at bending, and that they could become pro benders. He'll put himself out there for them. And I suppose it highlights his transition here at this point to his career's coming to an end. Why doesn't he start to be a trainer for the next generation? Here's the first two stars that he gets to scout. And here you see that Mako, standing up here of like, he wants to protect his brother, but he also knows that his brother isn't suited to being part of the triple threat. So he's making the decision here that this is the move that they need to make to do something a little bit different. So even though they were presenting Mako as being a little bit more like kind of pro triple threats, he ultimately has his brother's best interest at heart and can make the right decision. And so here we see the brothers and Toza, coming together basically. And it's an interesting one because obviously I never particularly got the impression from Toza, from what we saw on the show, that he was meant to be some sort of a father figure to the brothers. Whereas this more plays it up that way. So I guess it is more of just like a sort of, older character who is a friend to them, and that he did become more their trainer than anything. It probably is a little bit too much to in any way view it as being a father figure necessarily, but in general, I suppose it was nice for the two of them to have someone who was willing to kind of look out for them and teach them pro bending techniques and so on. So that's pretty important, and especially like I suppose Bolin, getting to learn earthbending from his hero. That's a pretty notable sort of character development of like that serves to establish sort of how skilled of an earthbender Bolin is, just because he learned from someone so powerful. Similarly, Mako learning lightning at such a young age because he's a prodigy from someone like Lightning Bolt Zolt. It's just cool that there's a lot of detail here if you go into the absolute details. They don't focus on any of those points of like lightning or where they get their bending skills from or anything like that, but it's there to kind of link into everything else. I do wish they had done more of this for the prior seasons. Like this just kind of was just a one and done thing, and in any of the extras on the future sets they didn't do anything along these lines. They did other stuff like the puppet bender shorts, but they were pretty bad, and you wish they maybe might have replaced them with more of this, in that I would have loved to have seen like an Asami style backstory in this style of her when she was younger. That might have been an opportunity to bring her mother into play, Yasuko. That would have been pretty nice, but that's something I think in general we want more for Asami as well, because of course Korra has the Friends for Life comic, which covers her backstory with Naga when she was younger. The brothers have Republic City Hustle, but we don't really have that younger backstory for Asami, so it would be nice to get. But overall, nice pro bending stuff with the triads. It feels very Korra, very Republic City. It's not the, I suppose, main part of the brothers' backstory necessarily, in that it would probably be more interesting to see the story of how they went from living happily with their family to their mother and father being killed, and how they came to join the triple threat. I think that would be a slightly darker story, but it would be interesting to see what caught the eye of the triple threats. Was it Mako being able to firebend from a young age? I would love to see that story of Lightning Bolt Zolt taking on Mako as a little bit of a kind of protege in a way, because you could see there at the end like Shady Shin sort of arguing for the idea of like one of them at least is smart. We want him as one of the triple threats going forward. They value Mako because of his intelligence and skill, whereas they don't really view Bolin in that way. So that's an interesting one, and I suppose it serves to highlight why Shady Shin specifically goes to Bolin in Korra when Bolin is on his own and is not with Mako, because Shady Shin knows Mako wouldn't want Bolin to do this, and that he can sort of take advantage of Bolin. So there's some nice subtle development if you really kind of make the connections, which I do quite like. And while they don't go too in depth into the pro bending stuff, there's a few little references here of just that, like, okay, 10 years ago he had a really big performance as the captain, and they won a championship, but it's kind of gone downhill since then for Toza with the injuries and so on. I wish they'd gone a little bit more in depth in terms of like, okay, he's a pro bending star, and he's still enough of a star to draw in a lot of bets to support the Porcupines. But he's not in any way successful. Like, he doesn't have any money. So has he just made a comeback from injury? That would make a little bit more sense, of like he hasn't been making money in the last while, but this is his comeback, but he has to, you know, take on the job with the triple threats to make even more money. I wish they'd just gone a little bit more in there, but I get the point that they're making, you know. Sports star at the end of their career, you know, trying to make more money. That you get what they're going for. But yeah, they're my thoughts on Republic City Hustle. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on this webcomic. How did you think it was for Bolin and Mako? But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.